Awesome. So this evening, you'll have a chance to speak openly with your FASS student ambassadors to reflect on this past semester in terms of what strategies you employed to help you prepare for assignments, tests, exams, quizzes, etc., and those which worked as well as those which may not have worked. This will kind of give us an opportunity to better prepare for the final weeks of the semester since we're kind of coming to the end. And as final essays are due, take-home exams come in, and final exams grow ever closer. So I'm going to give each of our ambassadors a chance to introduce themselves with their names, pronouns, and program, as well as program year. And again, if any of the ambassadors or set of the ambassadors fall within your specific program area and you have a question specifically directed towards them, please say so in the chat and we can arrange to either like place you in a breakout group towards the end of the session if you want to have like a one-on-one with that ambassador, if you have like specific questions about your program or a class that the two of you might have taken, or if you want, you can just direct the question to them in the general like Q&A period that we have towards the end. So yeah, just again, please feel free to use the chat function if you need to. And so now I will turn the table to all of my lovely ambassadors that I have with me tonight. And I'll just kind of invite you to go one by one, whoever wants to go first, or I can call on you. It's up to you.
Well, I'll go first then.
Awesome.
So hello, everyone. My name is Geneva. I use they, them pronouns. My major is Women's and Gender Studies. I'm in my 4th year. I'm gonna finally graduate in technically in November, but I'll be doing my last classes in the summer. And I have a minor in sexuality studies.
Awesome. Thanks, Geneva.
I can go next. Hey everyone, I'm Janie. I'm a 4th year anthropology student and I have 2 minors, one in American Sign Language and another in African Studies.
Cool. Thank you, Janie.
I can go next. So my name is Natalie. I'm in my 4th year of developmental psych and my pronouns are she and her.
I can go next. My name's Kirsty Brewer. My pronouns are she, her. I'm in my 5th year of psychology with a concentration in forensics, and I'm also minoring in human rights.
I'll go next. My name is Alejandra. I am in my 4th year of psychology with a concentration in developmental psych, and I use she, her pronouns.
I can go next. My name's Victoria. I use she, her pronouns. I'm in my 4th year of psychology with a concentration in forensics and a minor in German.
I'll jump in. I'm Shaylin, and I'm in my 4th year of psycholinguistics with a concentration in communication disorders, and I'm minoring in ASL, and I use she, her pronouns.
I can go next. My name's Cameron. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm 4th year in the cognitive science program with a specialization in neuroscience.
I can go. I don't know who's left. My name's Kirsten. I use she, her pronouns. I'm also in the cognitive science program like Cameron with a specialization in neuroscience and a minor in linguistics. Bit of a mouthful.
Cool.
I can go next. My name's Elena. I'm in my 4th year of applied linguistics and discourse studies. I'm concurrently doing my CTESOL. Yeah.
Cool. I think Rebecca, you're next, I think, right?
Yeah, my name's Rebecca. I'm in my 4th year in the Bachelor of Music program, and I use she, her pronouns.
Awesome.
Hey, I'm Richard. I'm my 4th year linguistics program. I usually go by his, him, he pronouns, but I'm not easily insulted, so I literally don't care whatever you call me.
Okay, sounds awesome. I think that was all of the ambassadors, correct? Speak now if I skipped you. Okay, cool. So we have a really wide array of ambassadors, as you can tell here. So I hope someone is kind of within your realm if you do have specific questions about your program. And even if you have, like if you heard someone who's in a program that you're kind of curious about, we're also open to talk about that. So again, if you want to speak to anybody directly or like address anybody specifically in your questions, just let us know. And if you forgot someone's name or something, just say like the program that you're in and we can go back to it towards the end. So before we actually begin, I would like everybody to kind of take a moment to write down either on a piece of paper or on your device, just your greatest strength that you feel you have when it comes to school, whether it's simply showing up and being present or writing a really killer essay, followed by your biggest fear or something that you feel like always kind of holds you back. And I just want you to kind of keep these in mind as we go into the question period. Yeah. So I'll give everybody maybe like 3 minutes, 2 minutes to write that down, just kind of brainstorm what you think. There's no wrong answers because this is a personal thing. You don't have to share it.
Just making sure it's something we're good at and something we're not, right?
Yeah, exactly. And if you feel like there's nothing that you're not good at, then that's totally fine too, or vice versa. Geneva, should we do it? Yeah, Geneva, if you want to do it too, that's cool, because then you can share it later on. So ambassadors, yeah, I invite you to do it as well, because then we can kind of have a relational conversation there. Okay, does everybody have their 2 things? Yep, awesome. So keeping those off to the side, kind of in the back of your mind as we go through these questions, I have a couple like sample questions that we're gonna use to get the conversation going. And again, if there's a specific question or answer that you would like to be expanded on, you can like raise your hand if you guys know how to do that function, like on Zoom, or like literally physically raise your hand, or just say in the comment section, like, oh, I have a comment. And then we can expand on that question if you feel like it hasn't been expanded on enough. And again, since there's no PowerPoint for this, it's really just a conversation. Just feel free to take notes of any like tips that you might find like particularly useful. So my first question for the ambassadors is, what have been some of your go-to study prep or essay writing techniques that you've employed in past semesters, and how have you adapted this to the online setting?
So I guess I can answer this first. So my program, or at least the courses I'm taking right now, aren't really too essay intensive. It's mostly tests and labs and things like that. So for me, I'll read my textbook before I watch a lecture. All of my courses are asynchronous, but I do this even like when I had in-person classes. I'll read the textbook before I go to class. That way I have some idea of what I need to ask, what I need to pay extra attention to during the lecture. And then after the lecture, I'll go through the textbook again and just kind of skim it and make notes for what I think the professor emphasized and what is really important to know. So that's kind of my general study situation.
Cool. Thanks for sharing.
Something that I wanted to add is that I think it's super important that we are open to changing our methods for studying, because a lot of our classes are going to need different things, and we can definitely tell that this is something we needed to be open to, especially with the online stuff. So something that works for one class might need some tweaking for another class.
100%. Like right now is all about being adaptable and flexible. Anybody else?
I can add on to Shaylin's. Yeah, I completely agree. Like each class is different. Most of my classes this semester are essay and paper heavy. I don't actually have any exams. They're all just papers, which is good and bad. But the hardest part for me is just getting started. So I think with writing, you literally just need to sit down and just pen to paper or just start typing. And once you get that momentum, it really helps. I've also noticed, this is kind of silly, but it's really helped me because everything's online, with concentration and productivity, because that's been my biggest issue. I've been listening to Mario Kart music or
Really?
Kirby music. It really, really helps with like toning everything out in the background, and it makes me like type faster. Seems silly, but try it. It
No, I
definitely
love
helps for writing. It really helps.
It definitely like puts the pressure on when you're kind of like you have that intense music in the background.
And it's fun.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Aaron said, especially with the final lap song. Yeah, that one probably.
Yes, that one's good. That one's good.
To kind of expand on what you were just talking about there, Lena, what if anybody wants to address my first question, but as well as this one, what type of like environment do you like to create for yourself in terms of like when you go to write, or when you go to study?
I can answer this. I like to have different environments like for the different classes, so that like I'm really sort of focusing on just one thing. So one thing that I did do was I went out and bought like color changing lights. So if I'm doing like writing or if I'm more studying, then I can sort of like change the lights and set a different kind of ambiance depending on the mood that I want to be in. So it's kind of like silly, but it's fun, and it just kind of really helps make it a bit more interesting.
No, that's a good idea as well.
That is so cool. I like love that so much. I never thought about that. I have chronic pain, so I like move around all the time anyway when I'm doing my work. So like I'm sitting down here at my desk, and like this is like my office study desk. But then like I'll go into like the bar area and like stand for a while, and then my knees will hurt, so then I'll have to like sit down to somewhere else, and I'll move all over the place. But yeah, that's a really cool thing to have like lights if you can stay in one place or if you have to stay in one place. But yeah, I really like that.
I may not have chronic pains, but I do the exact same thing. The moment class ends, I get up, I walk, I shake it all off because I can't sit down for that long.
I'm also a big fan of not doing my essays and stuff on my bed, because as soon as I get into my bed, I'm like, okay, it's sleep time. I'm gonna go to bed. So find a spot that's like comfortable, but you're also gonna get stuff done.
I'm with you, Natalie. That's something that I've started doing since this whole thing started and classes shifted to online. I invested in a nice comfy chair and a little table to do my work at that's not my bed. So that way, if anything, you're forcing yourself to get up and move. I find also, like, I don't know if any of you have professors that talk really slowly and don't give you an option to speed up your lecture. I have a professor that's doing that. I knit during it. I'm knitting right now. I just keep something with me so that way, like, because then you're still focusing, but you're doing something else. So it doesn't feel as, I don't want to say dreadful, but it doesn't feel so slow. Yeah.
It helps to pass the time. And especially I find like we're so used to kind of like sneaking onto our phones or something like that. So having something at least like productive, even like knitting in front of you that isn't taking your full attention, you can still pay attention, is really important. And yeah, I think Geneva, you mentioned this first about kind of having like activity or like actively moving rather than being stagnant for a really long time. Like that's super important. Like to be sitting for sometimes up to 3 hours or 4 hours if your professors go the entire time is not good for your body. So to even just like stand for 20 minutes during your lecture and then sit back down and then kind of alternate like that is really, really good. And I found that that's personally helped me as well. Does anybody else want to touch on this question, or we can move on to the next one?
I want to add on to what you were just saying about like moving and stuff. I don't know how much other people work, but I can work like 10 hours a day, maybe like, I don't know, it's usually between 9 and 11 hours, 11 hours max. Like I gotta sleep too sometimes, but it's really important to move however much we need to, like, when you're going to school, you're going to and from school, and you go between classes, and then you go to get some food, and you go all over the place. And the kind of power and energy that you put into going to school and stuff is not the same as sitting on a chair and staring at a screen. And it's a lot more draining, I find, to just stare at a screen. So I'm trying not to beat myself up so much about not being able to do the amount of stuff that I could do at like the same way, because it's totally a different format. I think that's an important thing to keep on to in the back of your mind.
Okay, that's a great answer. So for my next question, it was, how do you go about asking your professor for help or for accommodations, such as further explanation on assignment or an extension, for example?
Before online classes began, I had very good relationships with all my professors and kind of realized it's very easy to talk to them. So anytime I have an issue, a problem, or anything, I just send them an email and everything usually works out because they're fairly understanding.
Yeah, to add on to that. Oh, sorry. Sorry, just to add on to what Richard was saying. I'm personally not very close with a lot of my profs, which I think can be really daunting for first year students because like you don't really know the profs yet. Honestly, just send them an email to introduce yourself and be honest with them. Me personally, I went through like a couple of mental health issues at the beginning of the semester and I was falling behind on some things. But when I told my professor that I was having a hard time, they believed me and they gave me the accommodations that I needed. So like don't be scared to just be honest with them. If you're just having a really bad day or like an awful week, they're gonna understand.
Just to add on to what Natalie was saying, I feel like often when we reach out to professors, it's really common to feel like, you know, you're the only person reaching out to them about this specific thing. But chances are, and especially now, a lot of students, especially in the first year, are feeling the exact same way you are. So a lot of people are probably emailing this professor with the same question. So they're going to be very understanding and they're probably going to be really accommodating to you, especially like given the circumstances, like everything's different this year. And it's been a lot harder to study and focus. So yeah, like I say, like my biggest advice is don't be afraid. Like don't let the fear of reaching out to your professor stop you. Just send them an email. Like they're very friendly, they're very accommodating, they're very understanding.
Yeah, and just to add on to that a little bit more, it's also a very interesting situation that we're going through this year because the professors are also relearning how to teach us kind of through online as well. And so they may have a good perspective on how you're feeling in regards to COVID and all that. I know I just met with a professor the other week and was pleasantly surprised at the way that we could both like appreciate the position that we were both in.
No, it's definitely just about taking that step just to approach them because a lot of the time they are really, really approachable. Does anybody else?
I just want to add something else onto that too.
Please, yeah, please do. Okay, I'm really, really sorry to have to do this. Apparently we're gonna get kicked out, so I'm going to upgrade the account really quick. I thought that this was sorted out on the administrative end. So just please keep discussing and I'll be back in literally like 30 seconds, okay? So yeah, just keep going.
I want to say that it's true that there are some bad professors out there, like like a handful of professors just actually don't care and it's really trash. And you know, like if that class has a TA, then the TAs will be probably really upset about that as well and try to accommodate for you. But I talked to one of my old professors. Like I do work with her and like we text and call and stuff. And it's actually amazing just how much she cares about her students, like this specific prof. And it's a beautiful thing to like, she really wants to know what I'm thinking about being a student because like she was a student maybe like 20 years ago or some professors are like 40 years ago, you know. And she doesn't know what it's like being a student right now. And she's trying to listen to what I'm saying and apply it to like learning next semester for her class and stuff. And it's like, you really can't, you got to make relationships with profs because like it could help you like with your career, but it's just a better way. You could feel less intimidated to ask them questions when you need to.
And another thing that I've been doing this year, differently than what I've been doing in past years, is instead of going to office hours and bringing my assignment or whatnot, I just send the PDF to them already. Or if it's not assignment, it's just notes or something, I will send them that PDF before I have a Zoom meeting with the prof or something, so that I'll just say like for your reference, so that we're both looking at it. Because when you go to their office hours, you can bring your notes and be like, oh, this is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm confused about. But now that you're on Zoom, you're like holding up your stuff. And you know what I mean? It's just easier if you send it and you can both use it as a reference.
So the next question that we had was, what do you find the most challenging about finals season?
I'm definitely gonna say it's time.
Mm.
But like not time management, because I've gotten a lot better at that, but it's just literally having the time to do things. Because yeah, Richard agrees with me. Like I only have 3 classes, but somehow I'm super packed with work. But I think it's because professors don't exactly know how to do things online the way that we need things online now because of COVID. So they're doing a lot of weekly assignments instead of like before, when they didn't do as many weekly assignments, and that's eating up a lot of time, and you have to do the readings. Like sometimes you need to prioritize and you don't do all the readings, but now you have to do the readings to do those weekly assignments. But I did this thing. It's kind of dark, but you can't really see it very well, but I made this beautiful like calendar or schedule or whatever, and put when I need to do which readings and when I need to be doing what assignment on what day and everything. And I didn't used to do this at the beginning like of my university career or whatever, but it's so helpful to make this. I'm sitting at my desk and I can look at it. I know I need to do read this part of a book, this many chapters, and start working on my essay that's due in a week. Like I can see it and it's beautiful. It's really important.
Yeah, Geneva, I do a really similar thing. Like each exam week, like or during the exam break, I make like a month calendar, and I like actually organize everything like down to like the chapter that I need to review for each class that day. And it just like takes out a lot of the like worry from it. And like I do it like at this time now, and I'm like, okay, like in the 5 days leading up to this exam, like I need to review like chapter 1 and 2 this day, 3 and 4 this day, and like really just like section it out. And I found like that's like given me a lot of success, because you know you're going to get through everything as long as you like kind of commit to your schedule that you've made for yourself.
I agree. I just got a planner from Indigo. They have them for really cheap right now for 2021, by the way, because they start in August of 2020, and because it's past August, they have them on a discount. So if anybody's looking for a planner, you've got the whole next year. But I think just like for time, especially because there's so many people that are working and in school, and this is the busiest time of year with Black Friday and Christmas and Boxing Day and all of these deals. And I know a lot of jobs also have blocked off, book off, so you can't take any days off unless you have final. So that's also really challenging for students to just try to work around that, especially if you don't have like management who's very accommodating to your schedule. So it's just like making sure you find that balance and trying to prioritize what's important. Like Geneva said, obviously you don't want to miss out on like eating or sleeping to stay on top of your schoolwork, but just making sure you know where your limit is and prioritizing what's the most important for you.
I want to, touch on what you just mentioned, Victoria, about having priorities. I know that we can all get really, really caught up like in our assignments and our academic priorities at this time of the year, but we have to remember that we all are only like human beings, and we have basic human needs such as drinking water, eating food, and getting enough sleep. And as tempting as it can be to kind of just wake up, go straight to your computer, work all day through the night, and then go to bed with not many breaks, you need to make sure to be taking time for things that you do want to do and things that you need to do. Janie, were you about to speak? I saw your mic was off.
No, I was just gonna like echo pretty much what everyone said. I literally have, as you pulled up your calendar, mine's literally like right up there. I have like my planner in front of me, and I do a lot of lists. I'm a big list person. I make
Oh my gosh, same.
Yeah, I have like daily lists, weekly lists, monthly lists. Like I have so many of them, and nothing is more satisfying than just taking a red marker and just crossing something off. That's what my life has come to at this point. But yeah, and like just reiterating what Felicity said, like it's super important to take breaks. I definitely have found myself, I've obviously fixed this habit now, but like I would start in the day with like coffee and like a light breakfast, and then like hours would pass and I would get so into my work where I'd realize that like I haven't eaten anything else and it's like 5 p.m. So it's definitely really important to take breaks, drink water, feed yourself, because that's important too.
Very important.
Mhm.
I also want to say that it's really important to do little things that bring you joy. Like just even if they're not like, if you just like really need to cram one day because you have an assignment due the next day or like at that night, just a little thing. Like for example, I'm on my laptop a lot, right? So I changed my back screen to a slideshow of Nicolas Cage photos. So it's just like Nicolas Cage from a bunch of different movies making a bunch of really weird faces, or like him doing modeling where he's just like this. It just makes me so happy to see Nicolas Cage doing a bunch of weird things.
Yeah, I know.
But like I'll click off of something and I'll see it and I'll be like, now I have more energy. Now I can continue. You know, little things.
No, it really is the little things. That's actually really great. Okay,
I was just hoping to emphasize too how important sleep is.
Yeah.
I wrote 2 different essays, one where I stayed up far too late to write it,
Mhm.
and one where I realized how tired I was, went to bed earlier, woke up early and started working on it. And I did better the second time around because I had more sleep and could think better.
Too many times have I been in the situation where it's getting around like midnight and I'm really debating, do I pull this all-nighter or do I go to bed now, wake up around 6 and just finish it, you know, and at least get that 6 hours of sleep. And it's exactly what you said, Richard, like getting that little bit of sleep and just waking up a little bit early definitely makes a huge difference in your writing. Because when you get super tired, you might not think that you're tired, but your brain definitely isn't processing the way that it should be. And a lot of times your professors would be understanding if you're prioritizing your health over an assignment. So on that note, what advice would you give to your first or second year self when approaching this time of the year? If you have any like different advice from what we just talked about.
I think something that I do is I set specific time aside for myself to do something that I like. Like I'll be like, okay, once I like finish all my studying for today, I'm gonna watch my favorite show, or I'm gonna go out for coffee with my friends, because then you start to hate your program if all you do is think about your program and you're just working all the time. So putting aside that time for yourself is extremely helpful, because then you're less likely to burn out and you'll keep the joy in what you're studying.
That's great advice.
One thing that I find really helpful that I probably should have done in first and second year is to like beginning of November make sure all my notes are in order. So that way if I'm missing anything from the first half of the semester, I can like email classmates and catch up, because like there's been a couple of times where like a couple of days out from the exam, I'll realize I'm missing notes from a certain section of the course, and then like I won't be able to study for it. So definitely like making sure that you have all the material you need to study is really important.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than like the final like week or two of classes and you're kind of like scrambling to like look back through everything because there's too much content to finalize in like 1 week, you know. Does anybody else want to add on to that?
I think like something else super important on that note of keeping your notes together is actually take notes in your class, because there's nothing worse than receiving that mass email from somebody in your class asking everybody if they have the notes. So like just like don't be that guy and pay attention in class, because even if you want to watch Netflix or like scroll through TikTok with your headphones in, it's not worth it.
100%.
Yeah, and like a little trick to not be that guy is like to make a friend in the class. And I know that's a little hard right now if you're in first year. But in your second year, you might recognize a name and you can send them an email and be like, hey, like, do you want to work on this together? And then when you finalize the relationship, you can ask for their notes later.
Yeah, so to kind of expand on what Shaylin and Cameron mentioned about using your peers as resources, I have a question that was, how do you reach out to your peers for support at this time, whether it's academic support or just to have a friend?
So yeah, you can reach out to your peers, maybe on the discussion board. I know a lot of classes have them on See You Learn. You can reach out and you can be like, hey, like, does anybody want to do a study group where we can talk about the class, and then you can make friends that way. And I know a lot of students are probably really looking for study groups right now because they're probably just as stressed as you are. And also just reach out to your friends because it's so important to prioritize your mental health, especially right now, especially with exams, because it is very stressful. And yeah, just reach out to a friend and even say, hey, like, I really need to unwind and relax and see you. So, you know, if they're in your bubble, you can always ask them if they want to spend time with you, or if you can't, then you can even do like a virtual hangout, or you can watch a movie together virtually as well. Yeah,
that's a good
Another thing that you can do is join some clubs or societies at the school. So like Felicity is part of the SASA, and I am the president of CATL, which is the Carleton Applied and Theoretical Linguistics Society, and Richard is too. And so you can meet other students through that, either in the same year as you or even higher. And a lot of the students that are in the upper year level are so willing to help you with your studying techniques or just content. Yeah, Richard said cattle in the in the chat.
Yeah, I was just echoing. It's honestly like I'm definitely biased, and Janie is my co-president for SASA, so we're really biased when we like promote being a part of a student association. But if I've learned one thing from, and I know that this is supposed to be like a period for everybody else to be answering, but I wasn't a part of the association in my first year, and I really regretted that come my second year, and that's when I joined. And my grades have just continued to rise, and having like those peers as your friends as well as resources is just so great, because they're people that share like similar ideals to you and are in similar classes to you. So if you're struggling on a topic, you can always just turn to them and ask them for advice, or even just have them like read over a paper, things like that. How do you join it? Olivia, what program are you in? Psych. I'm pretty sure Psych has a student association, if I'm correct. Is anybody or any of the ambassadors in here a part of that? Psych Society. Victoria King, yes. Are you a part of it?
So I'm kind of a part of it. Like, I get the emails and everything. I go sometimes, but I didn't pay the fee. So there's like a $50 fee, and they have like field trips and things like that that you can do to kind of bond. I'm not too sure what they're doing right now. It's kind of quiet from what I can tell. But yeah, it's pretty good to be a part of it during the year. It just gives you a chance to meet people in your program, if anything. And yeah, you do kind of get to a point where you're recognizing people's names. Yeah, I don't have.
Do you know if they have any kind of like social media, like Instagram or Twitter or anything?
They have an Instagram. Hold on, I'll try to find it.
Yeah, if you want to send that in the chat for.
Yeah, I'll send it in the chat when I find it.
That'd be awesome. And even Olivia, even though you're in Psych, honestly, SASA, which is Social and Anthro.
I was just about to say,
we do a lot in terms of just like general student like engagement, and it's free. Like we don't, all of our events are kind of just open to the public. So if you're ever looking just for something to do on your Friday night, or you're trying to listen in on an interesting discussion, we have a lot of like guest lectures and things like that coming up. So yeah, you should. I'm gonna type our Instagram into there. But moving on to if anybody else wants to add on to the whole question of being in tune with your peers.
Yeah, I want to add one more.
Yeah, go ahead.
Something, it's not, hold on. Sorry about that. Something that I've been doing since first year is, especially when I have an exam, is that I'll send not a question to the mass, like in a mass email, but I'll send a link to a Google document. And I always get people who are like, oh my God, Geneva, thank you so much for doing this. I would have failed this exam if it wasn't for this document. Not necessarily if it wasn't for me, but like if like no one made this big document, you know? So like everyone will go on there, you can see like peak times, it's really funny. and everyone like adds information to it, and you can answer questions, just like randomly ask questions with random colors, and then someone's gonna answer it, or put like a comment on it, and everyone puts their own like puts input into it. And like I've definitely did that and then gotten 100% on an exam one time, and I was like, this is just like, why wouldn't people do this? Like, why wouldn't everyone do this? Why wouldn't everyone contribute or make one or send one out to the class? It's a great way to do that. And then like sometimes you can be in communication with one person more than another, and then you see them in class and you could be friends that way, and then have another class together and stuff like that. Super cool. Definitely recommend do that, even if you don't know anybody in the class. It helps people out and you can get help in return.
Actually, to follow up on what Geneva was saying, I've seen a surprising amount of Discord servers being created this year to help get people together, especially for language classes too. And that's actually been a really good way to confirm when stuff is due, to ask questions about the course, and just to chat in general. I was honestly surprised by it, but a happy surprise nonetheless.
Yeah, I was just introduced to Discord this year, and it's been really great. It's also just like a much more informal way to kind of connect with your peers. So if you're not familiar with it, just give it a Google search and look up like your student association on there. But yeah, and collaborative documents have also saved my life in the past as well, and they're really great. Even just to start it, even if you don't even have anything to put on it, but just say, hey, like, this is everything we need to know, and if everybody wants to contribute to it, it can be really great like that. My French class has a Discord. Yeah, and even as Erin said, yeah, your French class has a Discord where you do French game nights, and yeah, that can really help just to like learn the material in a more casual setting. So the final question that I had etched out was, who do you tend to go to when you're struggling with a topic in your class? Or what do you tend to do?
So I'm in a few study groups for my classes, and I find there's a lot of groups on Facebook too for the classes. So I'll kind of go there if I'm having a general problem with understanding instructions, or maybe I'm having a hard time figuring out a step in an assignment. Then I'll go to those. But if I'm having a hard time understanding something specific about the material, or I want more information about maybe a lab study that was done or anything like that, I'll go to the professor and just get that information directly from them, because they're experts in their field. A lot of the psychology professors have been working in their field for years and years and years, and I'm assuming it's the case like across FASS. So they're a really good resource for more information, or if you even want to learn more outside of the curriculum, going to them. They definitely have colleagues they want to rep. They definitely have studies that they want to send to you. And that's also a hack if you want free studies. Like, the professors and their colleagues want you to do that, because if you're subscribing to newsletters and publishers, they're not getting any of that money. So they'd rather just email you a link to the studies.
When I was in my first year, I abused my TAs. Like, I was after them all the time. I found that they usually gave a little bit more help than the profs, honestly. Like, if I came in with assignment or questions, they'd usually just blatantly tell me the answer and then explain it, whereas the prof, usually tries to prompt you and make you learn, like, so the TAs are there for a reason, and I would definitely use them.
Another good person that you can go to is, I know a lot of classes have PASS. So you can always go to your PASS facilities as well, and they can help you out because they've taken the course before. And if they're a PASS facility, they got a good mark in the course. So they're able to help you with that as well.
Yeah, if anybody doesn't know what PASS stands for, it's just peer assisted study sessions, and they run out of CSAS, which is the Center for Student Academic Success. Which is a really great resource when it comes to like study tips as well. And they have a lot of like online workshops going on right now since we're not in person. So I encourage you to check their website out as well.
Just to add on to the PASS, in like past years, if my course isn't currently doing PASS, but they have in the past, you can usually find PDFs of like the old sort of like mock exams that they've done. And so I found that really helpful in first and second year. If you just Google your course and then add PASS to the end, you can usually find like PDFs of mock exams or PDFs of just helpful information from previous past courses.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend doing PASS. I did it a lot in my first and my second year, and I went to it throughout the whole semester. So I'd usually get 2 practice midterm exams because I had 2 midterms in that class, and then I would use those as a study material for when I did my final exam. So it was very, very helpful.
Yeah, just to go off that, PASS was absolutely amazing in my first year. I wish I had it for every class, to be honest. It really helped. But another resource that I just thought of that I've used a couple times is the writing services resource through Carleton. I don't know if anybody's used it before, but it's really helpful. You book an appointment with somebody specifically. I think you have to go on Carleton Central and then go through My Success. It is a little bit more complicated to go through because you have to go through that portal, but it's definitely worth it. If you have any questions, they'll really help you, and they'll give you like the full half an hour or 45 minutes or whatever, talk to you about it.
I don't know if it's different now, but I used to just go onto the McCodrum Library website and go to writing services, and it was super easy to do through there. So I don't know if it's different because of COVID now, but it used to be simple to do through the library.
Like they might give you like instructions and stuff. So it's worth it to check out like both sites, definitely.
I think this kind of goes back to the last question too, but like your peers are also amazing resources. Like, I don't know how many times I bounce ideas for papers off my roommates or just like my friends in my classes. So they're also great resources to have.
And it also helps because chances are if you have one question, someone else in your class has that same or similar question. So it can kind of help to ground you in your confusion so you don't feel as alone. To add on to what was said earlier, I think it was Shaylin who mentioned going to your TAs. If your TA doesn't specifically like specify in the field or like the course itself, it can be helpful to go to your graduate student association. Most departments have one. So if you just look up like your department name followed by like graduate caucus or graduate association, that can be really helpful. And they usually have like their email listed and you can just contact them. And most graduate students that I've met are really, really like happy to like help you, even if it's just like pointing you towards a certain resource or something like that. Aaron asked, is there a resource for undeclared students to try and figure out their major, like a counselor we can talk to about our interest and strength? Yeah, so academic advising would be good to go to. I know that Allison, who is kind of, I think in the background of this call, usually works within like the undeclared sector at like orientation and things like that. So if you see, I don't know if you can see Allison's name on the screen there, Erin, but yeah, if you want to write down her name, she's always a great resource to send an email to, and she can definitely direct you when it comes to like the whole undeclared question. She's a really great resource, yeah. So
also, if I could add, I don't know, I'm not very familiar with the undeclared stream, but if there is something that you think you're interested in, like if you took a psych class and you're like, wow, that was super interesting, you can go see the undergraduate advisors for that program, and they are amazing. Like I know that the linguistic undergraduate advisor has helped me through so many different things. And they are definitely a good resource if you have kind of an idea of what you might want to major in.
Joan is amazing and we should treasure her.
Pardon?
I said Joan is amazing and we should treasure her, for at least in the linguistics department.
No, I feel the same about my academic advisor for my department. Kim's amazing. And just sending them an email, like Shaylin said, like send an email and ask just to set up like a Zoom call, and they can kind of explain to you like the details of the program. Like that's always really, really helpful. Yeah, so that's kind of like the questions that I had etched out. So now I'm gonna just turn the floor to all the students that are here. If you have any other like specific questions that you want to ask, again, this is a really safe space and there's no like silly questions. If you're thinking it, chances are someone else is thinking it. So yeah, if you have any questions, you can just turn off your mic, or turn on your mic, or you can just send it into the chat. If there's anything you feel we didn't touch on that has been concerning you, or something you want to be expanded on. No, that's fine too. So going back to what we did towards the beginning of the session, when we wrote down like our greatest strength and our greatest fear, do you feel that your like fear or like weakness, I don't like to think that any of us really have weaknesses, maybe just things that we'd like to improve on. But do you feel that it was addressed, or do you feel after some of this really sage advice that you feel more equipped to tackle it? Yeah. Okay. And maybe for the strengths that you wrote down, does anybody want to share them, or do you feel as though it was like reflected in our session today? Oh, Aaliyah had a question. Any tips for paraphrasing? Anybody have any tips for
I love the Owl Purdue website for anything citation. They will talk about paraphrasing. They will break it down into Chicago, APA, MLA, all of it. And yeah, they'll really break it down for you really well. Owl Purdue, I'll put it in.
Yeah, if you want to type that in there. Yeah, it's a really great resource. Correct me if I'm wrong, Shaylin, I'm not 100% sure, but do they have an option where you can actually like type in what you're using and they'll check it for you to make sure it's not plagiarism, or is
I don't think so, no.
Okay, pretend I didn't say that.
But they do have sample.
Yeah, they have resources.
They have sample papers and everything. Like it's a really, really great resource that I use to this day since high school.
Mm-hmm.
There are also like, sorry, Felicity, but what you were saying, like to check for plagiarism, like there are so many websites that you can go to. Like I can't think of any off the top of my head right now. I think BibMe might do it. But you can just Google like plagiarism checker and it'll come up. You can like put in, I would do a paragraph at a time and it'll make sure you don't have any plagiarized things in there.
I think also when in doubt, like if you're really not sure and like you've tried checking, just cite it, like just for the sake of just safety, like because when you are paraphrasing and you're not necessarily using quotations, you still need to put, like if you're using APA at least, you still need to put like the year and author, like last name within the like after the sentence. So it's always just safe to just cite it, just to be safe, because you don't want to lose marks for something so minuscule.
Yeah.
And another thing, sorry. You go ahead.
I was just gonna say another like great advice that my prof gave me is that it's always better to oversight something than to undercite. So what Felicity was saying, because you don't want to have that extra anxiety about accidentally like messing up your citation and you're afraid that you might have accidentally plagiarized something. So when you can, always oversight instead of underciting.
APA 7, like with social sciences, we usually use APA, not all the time, but it's very common. And APA 7 just came out. So the only thing I would caution you with those BibMe websites and such is that they might not have changed over from APA 6 yet. So just make sure that you're careful, because some profs will really be sticklers and some other profs will be like, I don't care, like so.
Also, the like Macodrum library has like resource tip sheets that are available on their website. I'm sending into the chat right now like the actual guide sheet. I think, is this for, okay, this one's for the 6th edition. They'll probably update it soon, but most of the citation guides are like on the library website as well. And there's always citation librarians that you can like reach out to at Carleton that will help you if you're struggling.
Yeah. One trick that I've always used is whenever I'm writing something, I always make sure I understand what is being said before I can use it. If I don't understand it, I'll just omit it or come back when I understand it better. And then I explain it as simply as possible. And usually if you try and explain it as simply as possible, you're not going to have issues with plagiarism because it's a lot more complicated than how you would usually put it. So that's what I've kind of used to help me get along, and it also helps keep my amount of direct quotes down. And I really appreciate that, and my teachers seem to like it. So that's just the tip I have.
Honestly, that's a really good point. Explaining it in like the most simple terms. Like think about how you would explain it to someone who's not in your program. Something that I know I'm trying not to talk a lot, but I feel like I have advice to give as well. But something that I tend to do, if you're like really stuck and you're like word blocked, having like writer's block, if you pull up like your voice memos on your phone and just speak about the topic, sometimes it can really just help you to kind of get all of your ideas out there, even if they don't necessarily like make like complete sense, just to get it out of your head, as opposed to like having to write it down, and just talking to yourself is really, really helpful. Also, do you have any note-taking tricks for lectures or readings? Does anybody have any note-taking tips?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead.
So since first year, I've been taking notes for every single reading that I've ever done. And I have so many readings that I can go back to, which is great because sometimes you have classes that are about similar topics and you can go back to those notes instead of reading the entire article again or the chapter, whatever it is. What I used to do was read through it, and then after like, I don't know, 5 minutes of reading, pull out what the stuff that I remembered that I thought was like the most important stuff, and then like write it in like a way with a bunch of slang and like swear words, just so I can understand what happened in like the most simplest of way, and then I can also like look back at them later and understand what I was talking about. What I'm doing more now, because I don't have as much time and things are a lot longer, is I'll go through it and I'll select like the paragraph that I think is really important, and I just like copy paste it into my, I know they're like, not to play like, I know they're all quotes, so I'm not like plagiarizing them when I go back and like write a paper on it or whatever. But like, and then I'll highlight or like bold things in that, and then I'll have like a 5-page document of some like a synopsis of, or a summary of a 30-page article. And I don't know, it's really helped me in writing papers later, or writing a book review later, or whatever like that.
I think something that I do for lectures themselves is I don't actually write down what the slide says, because you already have the slideshow in front of you. If you can understand your prof and they're not talking super fast, try and write down what they're saying, because often the slideshow to you anyways, and just copying down what that says in the class isn't going to benefit you at all. So if they exam that everybody else that didn't go to the class might catch that other people wouldn't.
And then there's a couple suggestions just in the chat. So Victoria said that she highlights one sentence per paragraph, which isn't always possible in content heavy things, but it's really recommended. And color coding is also really important. So like, depending on what you're trying to highlight and like what goes with what, so like definitions, keywords, important concepts. And then also like, yeah, printing out your slides can also be really helpful. So if nobody has any other questions, we are apparently running out of time again. So I'm not sure why this happened. I'm really, really sorry. But I'm going to send my email into the chat. So if any students have any like further questions that you want answered, or if you want like redirection to resources that we've mentioned throughout the session, just send me an email and I can either like direct you to the right person or direct you to another ambassador that might be able to help. And yeah, does anybody have any kind of final? Thank you, Shelly, yeah, for sending your email as well. If any other ambassadors are comfortable doing so, feel free. You don't have to though. And yeah, does anybody have any final questions before we kind of wrap up? No? All right. So I guess I won't close this out just in case anybody wants to like write down some of these emails, or just if you write down our names too, you can always just search us like in the general directory that's on Outlook. But again, I want to thank everybody for coming tonight, and just thank you so much for your patience. I know that we got kicked out once, but I really appreciate all of you for joining back in. And yeah, I hope that everybody has a great evening, a great rest of your week, and good luck on your final papers and your final essays. Just remember there's only like 2-3 weeks left, and then we get a little bit of a break, and we're all in this together realistically. So I hope everybody has a great rest of your semester.
And the break's been extended too, which is
It has been, yeah, so that's something to look forward to.
It's amazing.
And we're hoping to kind of have like more events like this, like in the future, like next semester, and we're hoping to have them more frequently because this one was a little bit last minute. But if you have any kind of like suggestions or things that you would like to see from us as ambassadors, again, just send me an email. Since I'm the head ambassador, I will redirect that towards our coordinators and we'll get it planned for you like right away. Yeah, so hope everybody has a great night. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thanks for coming.